Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Acting Secretary, thank you for your service with CBP as well. And I can tell you, when I was chairman, like the height of the terror threat and the caliphate in 2015, 2016, the department, FBI, intelligence community did a phenomenal job stopping that terror threat, many of which no one will ever know about. But I actually have a question about the budget, since this is a budget hearing. And it has to do with sort of creative ways to pay for infrastructure and security at the United States border. Unfortunately, the bill I have with Chairman Goodlatte had failed on the floor. It had $25 billion in advanced appropriations. Now we're looking at what I consider to be a crisis. Can you tell me how much the budget is for both infrastructure and technology at the border? You may not know that offhand. If you don't, that's fine.
I referenced a number of those investments in my opening and in my written statement. And good to see you again. Appreciate your expertise and longtime support of DHS and our missions for security. We did request $5 billion for wall, about $500 million for additional investments in border security sensors and technology, surveillance capability, for instance, as well as our air marine platforms to have a better surveillance capability as well.
One of the ideas that we had, and I think it was also discussed by, I think, Mr. Kushner, was we were going to put in that bill something called the Border Security Trust Fund.
Right.
But instead we opted for the advanced appropriation. But the idea is it's pretty simple, and to me it kind of makes a lot of sense. A Border Security Trust Fund, all the fees that CBP collects at the border, most of those, as I understand it, go to the General Treasury and not back to the border. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know how much is collected, say, on an annual basis with these fees?
Well, if you combine our trade mission with our merchandise processing mission, with our travel mission, we're talking well over $50 billion, well over the total funding requested for the entire Department of Homeland Security.
As it seems to me, you're collecting this at the border. It should go not just for border security, but we have a lot of infrastructure issues. When I go down to Laredo or McCaul, you see the long line of 18-wheelers and processing, and we can have better technology down there and have better infrastructure in place. Currently, how much of that goes back to the border and how much of it goes to the General Treasury?
A very small percentage goes back to the border. And if I could just offer that, I think the notion of a sustained fee-based investment in infrastructure, both to catch up with the deficit that we have for ports of entry, for instance, for border security technology, would be a tremendous idea. It was offered last week by the President in rolling out the immigration reform recommendations to members of Congress. But that kind of thing should be nonpartisan, to continue our investments without waiting on the vagaries of a budget cycle to make sure that we can enhance lawful trade and travel, as well as secure against narcotics, provide increased protections all along the border is a very good concept and idea that I would support.
And I was going to ask if you did support that idea. I think this, Mr. Chairman, is a bipartisan issue. It's not political. It's just using a fee that's captured at the border to go to protect the border and build infrastructure. And it's self-sustaining, as you said. I get really, we all don't look forward to the appropriation cycle and the shutdowns of the government and the cliffhangers and all the drama, holding your department hostage with this kind of funding. And this will happen again, unfortunately, I think in September, if we don't do something creative like this to solve that problem in a responsible way without scoring political points or having the shutdown of the government, which I don't think anyone here supports that idea. I don't think it's ever productive to shut down the government. And then it just turns into finger pointing for political purposes. So I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, I would very much like to work with you and the ranking member on this idea, if you would be amenable to that. And I certainly want to thank you for your service and your support for this idea as well. And with that, I yield back.